everybody. Welcome. This is Chris Svensson from Sapphire Books, and we are doing a series of author conversations. And first on the block is Sarah Tabamo, right?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Sarah's written a book called Laurel Cove, which is actually a fantastic book, and it's set in Maine, right?
Yes.
Okay, and it's you can get it on the Sapphire website, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, Kobo, and any other fine retailers. It comes both in ebook and print book. So, Sarah, tell us a little bit about Laurel Cove. What made you want to write about a book about romance and specifically someone who has a disability?
Um, well, I wanted to write a story that had a character who had was differently abled, because I wanted to have a heroine that didn't actually have any like mental disabilities. Like she's actually the strong one in the story. It's the character who is physically able, who has all of the issues in her life. She's the one who has all the problems, and the strong one is actually her best friend who is differently abled. I wanted someone who people who had disabilities could look to as a character that was strong and capable and be able to have that happy ending and a good situation. Because so many characters in books and movies and television who are differently abled don't get that. I talk to other authors or other people who have MS or other disabilities in which they said there's no characters out there who they can look to or even read about in books. So I wanted to create a story that had that in it. um, so that's why I chose that. I chose the setting in Maine because I grew up here, lived here most of my life, and I wanted to have that small island setting that I grew up in. Laurel Cove actually doesn't exist here, so I kind of made up my own little town, but it is based on every sort of little island community that is out here.
That's great. Why don't you give the reader or the listener a little synopsis about what Laurel Cove is about?
So the backstory to the book is that my main character Willa um, has a best friend named Bryn, and she also has a best friend who is Bryn's twin brother. And the three of them had grown up together since childhood, and there's an accident that takes place on the graduation night of the three of them. And because of that accident, Bryn ends up paraplegic. And Willa ends up not being able to go off to college like the three of them planned. And they wanted to go off together. They had all these plans. They were, athletes and had some huge expectations out of going away and becoming something and leaving their small island community. And so Willa essentially goes off on her own while her brother stays, or Bryn's brother stays and takes care of her. And they end up living their adult life out on the small island. So 20 years later, Willa's father, and this is where that book actually begins, Willa's father passes away. So she goes back to the island to take care of his estate. And that's where the story starts off, is kind of going back and being not accepted by her community because she had done what she did and hurt her best friend. And so it's sort of like trying to get all of those relationships taken care of and trying to win back friendships that she didn't have, and finding love throughout it, and finding also other friends that she had left along the way. So it's kind of like getting any sort of relationships back because she became someone who was sort of famous in the world and kind of going from a New York Hollywood lifestyle back to small island living in Maine.
So obviously, this kind of book needs a lot of research or some research. How did you go about doing the research for someone who is in a wheelchair or is wheelchair bound a good portion of their life?
Yeah, that was really interesting. It involved a lot of internet searches because there's such a huge range too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the research in that I found is every person's story is completely different. You might have feeling in certain limbs and not in others. And it's really interesting. I had to look up even how paraplegics can make love to other people and what
Oh
their
wow.
abilities are. Yeah, it's interesting. It's very very different. I learned a lot, but mostly what I learned is there's so many different spectrums um, in that sort of community of people that you really have to pick and choose how you want to build your character based on that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not based on a real person. So it was more of, choosing an injury type and choosing what she could feel versus not. And so I sort of took little bits and pieces of everyone's situation and created a character that was based.
So was it hard to see through that character's eyes how they were going to find love, or how did you how were you able to make her the strong one and the other person who had the ability to walk and do everything she wanted? How were you able to really look at those divergent characters? And did you see yourself, obviously you're not disabled, how did you in what way do you think that you incorporated yourself in some of those characters?
Well, with Bryn, I really made it so that she was physically strong in every other aspect. So she's still an athlete. So she went from being a regularly abled athlete to owning a gym. She still plays tennis and basketball and all of the sports that she did before. But what she learned is that, she could go from what she had dreamed she was going to be to really learning other sports that she's better at, or that she can still play just in Paralympics instead of, regular Olympics or, things like that. So she's really pushed herself physically. So she's stronger in different ways than she was before, um, and still successful. Whereas really Willa, the main character, went off and was so distraught over what she had done. And even though she became successful in what she always loved to do in writing, she was so mentally disturbed over, her what she believed hurting her friend that she ended up having like a lot of problems in adulthood over that. And so when she came back, it was dealing with, people not really trusting or caring about her too, because she also became famous. So there's those things where it's like, does anyone really actually care about me, or is it my money and my fame? And so she had a lot of issues. And when she was approaching Bryn and sort of getting to know her again, it was kind of like you would see that Bryn was really strong in herself and was okay with everything and had made peace with what had happened. So yeah, it was interesting to kind of bring their relationship together, but make it so that one of them was okay with herself, which is usually the one that you would think wouldn't be.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Um, So, how hard was it to actually write this?
Um, I wrote it pretty quickly. I think it only took me about 3 months to write the story. Because when I get a story in my head, I usually um, takes about 10 minutes to formulate everything that I want to have happen in it.
Wow.
And it's literally just taking the time to do it. So what I do is I try to dedicate 1,000 words a day. And
Oh, wow.
so it's really like just getting it out of my head and on the paper, which is the slow portion of it. But it actually flowed pretty well. And I took that time out of my life to not work and not do anything else but write the book. So it went pretty fast.
So, are you a plotter or a pantser?
hmm. Um, I definitely, it's weird. Like I pre-decide everything out ahead of time. Um, I, my approach is to go through. I look at it almost like a movie in my head, and I have it's like my characters and my plot are all one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't choose one thing over the other. I just sort of put it all together. And the way that I write is starting literally chapter one, and I start, writing each sentence out. Even though I have the other parts in my head, I won't even take notes. I don't do anything, and I start at the very beginning, and I formulate each sentence exactly the way I want it. And when I submitted it to you, actually, I it was my first draft that I submitted.
Wow. Great
So
first draft. Great first
thank you.
draft. So,
That's like to write. So
so you live in Maine, which is the farthest most point, I think, in the United States that you can get. Do you use your location? And Maine is, so different in a lot of ways than a lot of other states because, obviously you're much higher, it's cooler, colder. You get a lot more snow. Is that play a role in your book?
um I don't think it plays a role. Um I like the quiet setting. Um, I try to stay away from city settings. Like I'm finding, like as I'm writing my second book, that it always starts off in a city, and then it's being able to leave the city and go to a quiet place. That's because I'm used to the ocean and the woods, and staying away from people is my thing. And I kind of like to take people out of that city setting, especially as characters, and then bring them into the wilderness or the ocean setting or something that's more calming and changing their life because of that. And I think a lot of that is because when I was younger, like that's what a lot of people's thoughts are. Like, I want to get out of Maine. I want to leave this place. And I did for a few months. Well, when I was a child, we actually went to San Diego for a little bit. And then my dad hated it so much. He's like, we have to go back to Maine. So we ended up coming back to Maine. And as an adult, I went to Baltimore, stayed for 3 months, and I was like, I need to go home. I hate this place. And so I'm like, now I get it. Now I understand that, and I appreciate being here. A lot of people complain about this winter, and I love it. I'll take a great snowstorm any day.
So it really does play a role in your books in a way that you have them starting off in the city, and obviously, it sounds like the country and the open spaces becomes a bit of a sanctuary or a change in their life when you migrate them out that way.
Yes, definitely.
So where did you get your writing chops?
I actually didn't have much interest in writing until seventh grade. Um, I had a teacher who just wanted us to choose how many pieces of writing we would do throughout the semester. And we just had to reach that number. We could write whatever we wanted, it could literally be anything. and I ended up winning Future Writers Award. I got like this little plaque and it had my
Wow.
name on it, and I was all excited. And so after that, I was like, wow, this is something that I want to do. And but I had always thought that I wanted to do like screenwriting or something else. And then I realized through that process that you really lose a lot of what you write. It doesn't become completely yours. It's not totally your project. You have to work with so many other people. And I was like, well, that's not for me. I don't want to do something like that. So I decided to try novels and be able to really get the story out the way that I want, and it's mine. Um, and so, yeah, Laurel Cove was the first story that I've ever written.
Well, that's great. So, what are you working on now then?
I'm writing a story called Unlocking Rosin Manor, and it is about a drug runner who ends up in a drug deal gone bad, and so she has to come up with a large sum of money really quickly. And in order to do that, she just has to find, a place to crash and something. And so she ends up at a giant manor and um, has a plan for getting her money back. But little does she know that the other main character, who is the owner of the manor, is she ends up basically falling for her. And it's it's like she ends up caring for her enough that she doesn't want to do the bad stuff she's planning on doing in order
Oh,
to get. So yeah,
so um, set in Maine.
yeah, I never actually say that it's Maine. um she sort of
Hmm.
starts in a city and ends up in a quiet setting. um I haven't actually put the names of cities or the names of towns into it, but when there's descriptions of certain things in there, it could be brought back to Maine.
So, is this action, adventure, mystery, straight romance?
It's definitely romance.
Hmm.
It kind of in the terms of like Laurel Cove is like Laurel Cove is lesbian romance, but there's exciting stuff that happens. There's twists and things that you don't know about until the end, and it's kind of exciting of sorts. It's yeah, there's stuff that happens that makes it not just like a regular romance, but at the heart of it, it's romance.
Right. So it's got romantic elements, as we like to say.
Yes,
Good.
definitely.
It sounds great. Actually, it sounds great. Um, what's something that you're adjusting to right now during this pandemic crisis?
um I love this. There's nothing that I don't love about this. This is probably like the last. I have not left the house in a little over a month now at all.
Wow.
Um, I have been ordering everything through. I found that grocery stores and big chain places and even like little um, local bookstores, they're all delivering. And so I have not actually left at all, and I couldn't be happier. Like, this is the most wonderful time ever.
You want this to last forever.
I would be okay with it. I wouldn't have a problem. I'm a bit of a germaphobe anyway, in general. I typically, follow the rules of washing hands and not touching my face. I have always kept hand sanitizer in my car and use it the second I get in. Like, I do not live life any differently anyway, except it's an excuse to be like, okay, I'm not going to be social. But we've been, my friends and I, because I do enjoy going on like board game night and things like that. And so we find a way. We use social media, we use, meetings online, and we get together. And so I'm still able to be social. I painted my mom an Easter card and brought it to my parents' house, but I put it in their mailbox and I called them up. I'm like, you come and get it, but I can't see you. I'll call and FaceTime you. So, but yeah, I haven't been in public or out at all in a while now.
So this has not been a struggle for you. You haven't had creative anxiety or you haven't had to worry about writer's block or any of those things.
Oh no, it's been I actually am getting enough writing done that my book that I'm writing now will be like ready. I've been staying on that 1,000 words per day goal, and I'm totally loving it. I'm more creative. I'm finding that if there's not enough time in every day to get everything done that I want to do, because I love this so much that, there's every day I'm like, oh, I'd love to do this and get this done. And this is great.
Well, that's good because I'm hearing from a lot of people who are just so struggling, myself included, because you tend to be, some of us are social animals, and for those, I think the people who are really surviving this are those kind of homebodies who like to be at home and have tons of things to do and find going out to be a distraction instead of staying home being a distraction.
Yeah, definitely. I think it helps because, we have a large house with lots of rooms. So it's like, we kind of get together and have coffee in one section of the house. And then it's like, where do you want to have lunch today? And, there's the patio. We have like a huge fenced in yard. So there's plenty of space to get out and do things and still be like in the house and do things too. We have instruments and art supplies and I love Legos, so I'm constantly, doing projects and it's so much fun. Like I'm very much enjoying this.
Well, that's great to hear. I'm so thrilled that we got this chance to talk. I think it's probably the first time any of your readers have probably heard from you or got to see you in action. So I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with me and do this little interview. I'm sure everybody's super excited to hear about your new book. And I can't wait to read it. But is there anything you want your readers to know about you?
um, I don't know. um,
Do you
wow.
do you social media a lot?
I I love to go on to like Facebook. Um, and read other people's stuff. And I love to go on and like other people's photos. I am not a huge like poster
Mm-hmm.
myself. Don't I don't like to get in and be political or, like I'm a, hey, here's my cat, here's my dog type of poster. I don't, but I'll go on and like everybody else's stuff. And it's funny because I work at a veterinary hospital, and um, they put me in charge of social media. And I kind of laughed because they want me to post like one or two things a day. And they sent me home. That's why I haven't been working because I have asthma and they're kind of concerned. They don't want me to actually get any viruses. And so that's why they're like, really good about it. And they're like, you just stay until everything is good and then come back to work. And but they were like, you could continue and do social media for us. And I think it's funny because I make a point of posting at least a couple times a day for them online. But I was like, I have my own Facebook author page and I haven't posted on there in forever. So I was like, man, I really need to like get into this. So I did do a post this week on there, and I was like, I need to actually post my own stuff for my own author page and get more into it. But I do have a Twitter page and I do have a Facebook author page, and I enjoy reading other people's things, and I will completely get on board more with doing that. Hopefully, get more social on there for sure.
Do you use Instagram?
I have an Instagram page
Mm-hmm.
and I think I have one. post on there. It was more so to get friends and be able to see other people's things.
Hmm.
Um, that's another thing that I need to do is start doing that.
So, if anybody wanted to get in contact or follow you, how can they do that? What's your Facebook, your Twitter handle, your
um,
website,
I
email?
I think I have them actually posted as links through the Sapphire site.
You do.
So anyone wants to go onto Sapphire and find me on there, I have them linked in through there.
Okay, great. Well,
Yeah,
Sarah, thanks for being our first guinea pig in the Sapphire Authors Conversation. It has been absolutely delightful. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a fantastic day, and I can't wait to read your new book.
awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks. We'll talk soon.
Okay, bye.